Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive. This time, it's all about pre-planning funerals. And not exactly a party topic, but stick with us because this stuff is really important. I was looking at this blog post called Harness the Power of Pre-Planning, an insight to cost-effective funerals. And it got me thinking, like, maybe we should talk about this a little.
Yeah, I mean, pre-planning, it's not just, doom and gloom. It's actually kind of smart, like taking control, being prepared.
Exactly. And I was actually really surprised by how much goes into the cost of a funeral. I knew it wasn't cheap, but this blog post really breaks it all down, like all the different things, the casket,
Yeah.
the burial plot, everything.
And it's not just like a fixed price. It really varies depending on where you are, what you choose.
Right, like a simple pine box versus like a super fancy casket, that's got to be a big difference.
Huge difference. And then there's the burial plot, a cemetery in a city versus a rural area that's going to impact the cost too. And then the service itself, like a simple graveside service versus a big funeral with all the bells and whistles, all that adds up.
Okay, so much to consider. It feels kind of overwhelming, to be honest.
That's why this blog post is so helpful. It's all about knowledge is power. You understand the costs. You can make better decisions that fit your budget and what you believe in.
Yeah, I'm starting to see why pre-planning is not just about, being morbid, it's about being proactive.
Absolutely.
But okay, let's be real. Most of us, we're not funeral experts. Like, where do we even start with comparing costs?
Well, the blog post says, shop around, get price lists from a few different places and compare what they offer. You'll be surprised at the differences.
That makes sense. Like, I wouldn't buy a car without comparing prices first.
Yeah.
So why should a funeral be any different?
Exactly.
But what about those pre-need contracts they mentioned in the blog post? Are those worth looking into?
They can be a good way to lock in today's prices.
Right.
Protect yourself from inflation in the future. You basically prepay for everything at a set price no matter when you actually need the services.
Oh, so it's like a price guarantee, kind of.
Yeah, basically. But there are different types of contracts. The blog post talks about guaranteed and non-guaranteed options.
Oh, right. I remember that. So guaranteed means they stick to that price no matter what, even if costs go up.
Exactly. And non-guaranteed contracts, they might have some wiggle room. Prices could change a little bit.
I like a trade-off, right? Guaranteed you're protected, but it might cost more up front. Non-guaranteed, it's cheaper at first, but you might end up paying more later.
It really depends on what's important to you, what you're comfortable with. Do you want that price certainty, or are you okay with some flexibility? The blog post says, think about those things carefully before you decide.
This whole conversation is making me think about my aunt. She actually pre-planned her entire funeral a few years ago. Yeah, at the time I didn't really get it, why she was doing it. But when she passed away last year, it was such a gift to our family, like serious. It took so much stress off of us.
That's what I'm talking about. It goes from burden to this really thoughtful thing.
Yeah, and we knew exactly what she wanted, the type of service, the music, the readings, everything. Like there were no big decisions to make, no financial surprises, during a time that was already really hard.
Exactly. And the blog post talks about that too. It's not just about saving money. It's about taking that emotional burden off of your family when they're grieving.
Yeah, totally. It allowed us to just focus on, celebrating her life.
Yeah.
And supporting each other instead of all the logistics and stuff. It made me realize pre-planning isn't just practical, it's really personal.
The blog post mentions that too, shaping your legacy. It's not just about making things easier, but about expressing yourself even when you're not there anymore.
And, my aunt, she was very specific about the details. She wanted the celebration of life.
Yeah.
Not like a somber funeral. She even picked out the playlist, all upbeat Motown hits. It was so her.
That's a perfect example of how you can make it your own. It reflects who you really were, not just some generic service.
Exactly. It felt like she was still there with us, in a way. It made the whole experience so much more meaningful, even though we were sad.
It makes you think about how a lot of funerals are kind of the same, But when you pre-plan, you can break out of that and make it unique, something to remember.
Okay, so say someone decides to do this, pre-plan their funeral. What are the steps?
Well, it does say that you should start by talking to a good funeral home. They can walk you through everything and explain the options.
Okay, so you don't have to figure it all out by yourself. There are people to help. But what do you actually talk about in that first meeting?
It's your chance to tell them what you want. Do you want a burial cremation, a memorial service, or something totally different? What kind of atmosphere are you thinking of? Music readings. They can help you figure all that out.
So it's kind of like a brainstorming session where you get to explore different things and tailor it to what you want.
Yeah, and don't forget about the money. They'll give you price lists for all the different services and things so you can make a plan that fits your budget.
That's really important.
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to be surprised by costs later on.
Right. Having those conversations up front takes away a lot of stress and uncertainty later. And speaking of conversations, the blog post also says it's really important to talk to your family about your wishes.
Yeah, that's where it gets tough, right?
Yeah.
Death isn't exactly like dinner table conversation. It can be a really emotional topic.
True, it's not always easy. But the blog post suggests thinking of it as an act of love. You're doing it to make things easier for them and make sure your wishes are honored.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
It shifts the focus from being scared or sad to being caring and practical.
And it's a conversation, not like you're telling them what to do. Be open to their thoughts and feelings, answer their questions and address any concerns they might have.
So it's about having a safe and open conversation where everyone feels comfortable, not just telling people what you want.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe talking about it will inspire them to think about pre-planning too. It could become a family thing.
Wow, that's a really powerful legacy to leave. This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. I'm really seeing pre-planning in a new light.
Me too. It's not about dwelling on the inevitable. It's about taking control, expressing yourself, and making sure that your final chapter is written with intention and care.
I love that.
And, when we started talking about pre-planning, I really didn't know what to expect. But this whole conversation has been like a total shift in how I think about funerals and even just life in general.
It's funny how it goes from like this taboo topic to something that makes you think about your values and what you want to leave behind.
Right. It's like this blog post, Harness the Power of Pre-Planning. It like opened up a whole new conversation.
Yeah, personal stories like make it real.
Yeah.
It's not just some abstract idea. It can really impact the people you care about. And you mentioned how pre-planning can help shape your legacy. That really stuck with me. It's like you get to control the narrative even when you're gone.
And it resonates with so many people. It's not just about picking music or readings. It's about making sure people remember who you really were.
Yeah, it's like you can still express yourself and make a statement even after you're gone.
And pre-planning gives you the time to really think about that stuff. You don't have to rush it. You can weigh your options, make a plan that feels right.
It takes the pressure off, too, knowing it's all taken care of. Your loved ones can just focus on grieving and remembering you without having to worry about all the details.
The blog post talks about that sense of relief. It's a gift you give your family so they can just heal and remember.
So we've talked about the practical stuff and the emotional benefits.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm still wondering about is like, when is the right time to start thinking about all this?
That's a good question. And honestly, there's no magic age or right moment. Life is unpredictable. Any of us could be in a situation where pre-planning suddenly becomes important.
Yeah, true. It's a good reminder that it's not about waiting for some milestone or health scare. It's about being proactive, no matter how old you are or what's going on.
What I like about it is that pre-planning can actually help you embrace life more. You face your mortality, you make these choices, and it frees you up to live more authentically in the present.
I never thought I'd say this about planning a funeral, but that's actually kind of inspiring. It's not about being obsessed with death. It's about celebrating life and leaving a legacy of love and intention.
I love that. And if our conversation today has made you even think about pre-planning just a little bit, I encourage you to explore it more. Talk to your family, maybe reach out to a funeral home and get some info.
Yeah, it's a journey.
Yeah.
Take your time, ask questions, and trust your gut.
And remember how you want to be remembered, that's up to you. Pre-planning gives you the power to shape that story, to create a farewell that really reflects who you are and leaves a legacy of love and meaning.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into pre-planning funerals. We'll be back next time with another insightful look at life's big questions.